So, El Jefe, I know you from your work with the Diana Initiative, but for the benefit of everyone out there on BeerCom 1, give us an introduction. What do we need to know about you?
Oh, great, thanks. So my name is El Jefe de Security Online on Twitter and various online channels. But my real name is Raul Rojas, and I work for Microsoft. I am the security architect for the search, ads, news, and research division within Microsoft. So I have an opportunity to do and see a lot of crazy things with
I'll bet.
a global scale of internet, right? So how everyone sits there and says they talk about Google and everyone wants to go Google. I sort of kind of say, well, I Bing, yeah. So that's what my background is. That's where I work and what I do on a day by day basis. And yeah, so we first met at the Diana Initiative a couple of years ago.
Yeah. So I will want to talk about the Diana Initiative because you're kind of representing them here on BeerCon 1, but I do want to start maybe with Microsoft. Now, a huge investment Microsoft has made in security across the board. Um, as your platform being sort of I would say, the evolution of, all sorts of security layers and security capability. Are, are
Right.
are you migrating the products that you're sort of responsible for to that as your platform, or are they already on them?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? So, um, for example, the areas that I work with, right, which are search, ads, and news spaces, they have a pretty significant infrastructure worldwide, right? We
Right.
have regional deployments here in the U.S. and Europe. We have presence in various nations for the regulatory controls needs. Presence in India and China, right? We're not just here, but as well as Australia, and we have coverage, worldwide for search, as well as for the capabilities that we provide for, our other platforms like Office and Azure, right? So
Mhm.
that infrastructure has been around for a good decade, right? And that was the original, original, right, incarnations of what you now see as the modern evolutions of Azure platform and the service fabric and the substrate that builds up the graphs that we have, today, right? So, we're sort of kind of like, victims of our own success. There's like, we have all these new capabilities that are now available in Azure. So we want to take advantage of that. Well, that means we have to migrate parts of our search platform up to that new platform as well. And some things are already there, like ads and rewards. I love rewards. I kept that on my Xbox and on my phone and everything else, right? And that's a lot of fun for me, right? Because I turn that right around into benefits as well, right? That I can give to things like the Diana Initiative and other charities like this event, right? For example, right? So there's a lot of work that we do to put stuff and move stuff, our new development on Azure today because we get a lot of benefit from the scale
Yeah.
and the regionalization, right? That enterprises get as well. Um, so we a lot of our platform is just raw compute, right? .NET based compute, that's really highly performant and optimized for indexing the world's internet, right? So
Yeah.
that's a lot of what we do in that, and then for the security of those things, right? Is like, I mean, if you think about it from the perspective of we do a lot of advertising, and we make sure that those ads go out to those people, and there's a lot that we need to make sure to protect the data and the integrity of how we address when those ads pop up and how they pop up and make sure they're contextually aware based on what you search, and making sure that we're not taking into account the personalization, right?
Yeah.
We take a lot of work and effort into making sure that we protect the user session and profile, um, almost fanatical, like it's a new religion across the company. Um, and ever since GDPR, we go above and beyond to include that. As you probably heard of like the Microsoft Trust Promise,
That's right.
um, right? And there's a lot that goes behind that. Everything down to separate identities for things with production, and making sure there's full authorization chains for everything. And we encrypt every bit of customer data that we are entrusted with, right? There's a lot that goes behind that, and the audit controls that support all that, right? So there's a lot to think about with that, and then, oh, by the way, how do we build those new experiences? How do we build those new things that we want to go do with our research, and things like our cognitive services and those APIs that drive new machine learning, and making sure that those things don't have inherent bugs when we ship those APIs for things
Yeah.
like data modeling and data visualization. The AIs that are being developed out of bot frameworks, and the experiences we're bringing with customers, and the scenarios that they're bringing to us with as well, right? It's amazing, right? For example, right? I mean, some of the fun things that I get to play with is everything from IoT devices, using Azure Sphere, all the way up to saying hi to a plant in my office when I walk in every morning, right?
Cool.
Right. So it's crazy being part of that research part of the company, that also has that fundamental core root that built Bing from the beginning, right? I mean, Bing was a research project way back in the day, and that whole researcher culture is very well ingrained in that part
That's
of the division, for
that's
example.
really, really cool. So you can confirm at this point that there is no longer any front page extensions being used.
Not that I'm aware of,
Oh,
right?
that's good news.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's interesting because Microsoft has a long, and some people would say challenged history with introduction of a new technology and things
indeed.
like that. Um, you know, there are folks that argue that the .NET ecosystem is more difficult to accomplish things at scale. Uh, how do you respond to folks that are sort of like uh, feel that open source is the only solution?
I don't know. I that's sort of kind of like, I don't know. Well, for example, I've been at the company for 20 years. Let's
Right.
start with that, right?
Okay.
And I started back when there wasn't even this thing that we called open source, right? It really was before this whole concept was really being published as that one seminal paper called The Cathedral and the Bazaar,
Hmm.
right? And if you haven't read or heard about that, I'd suggest you go check that out,
Yeah.
right? And here we are, 25 years later, if you will, almost, right? Because back then I was working, in college with Slackware 3.1, right? Um,
Yep.
from this guy Linus, who was a freaking, you know oh my god, what the hell is this guy doing, taking HPUX and other Unix systems and building it for 386 PC?
Yeah.
Okay, let's run it. Right? That was our mindset, right? And this was me pre Microsoft, right? When I was still touring with the Dead during college, and hanging out with Rolling Stone magazine, for my internship, right?
Hmm.
But fast forward 20 years, 25 years now, and the bazaar is in the cathedral,
Yeah.
right? If you really think about it, right now, it's adopting a lot of the old mechanisms that the cathedral has had as part of its old dogma. So we're seeing this evolution across open source, and we're seeing it happening across enterprise customers, and we have the same problem as search ads and news businesses. We have all this open source, and
Hmm.
we're using and consuming open source, and we're leveraging those modules and components, right? And contributing back in a variety of ways, not just from us, but from research, right? We can contribute a lot of things. If you go check that
Yeah.
stuff out, right? It's all out there, all of our samples. I mean, all of .NET Core is now out there on GitHub, right? I mean, just knock yourself out, read the code, right? Compile it.
Right.
You can go
Right.
fork it if you want, right? Um, and the exposure is all there. So the argument that it's complicated, well, I mean, if you grew up with it like me, it's easy, right? Because I've always had Visual Studio, I've always had VS Code, I've always had PowerShell. It was
Yeah.
always at my fingertips. I grew up understanding the, the 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 hardware abstraction layer for Windows, right? And meanwhile, everyone outside that scope is learning the same thing in Unix, right?
Right. Right.
But right at some point, somewhere along the lines, I remember being there at one meeting where one of our executives, point blank asked, "Who here would ever want to see SQL on Linux?"
Yeah.
And there was a hushed silence. And I was only one of three people who raised my hands. I looked up and I looked around, 5,000 people in the room, all internal Microsoft people. I was only one of three people who raised my hand. And I can hear this guy say, okay, we've got a long way to go, right?
Yeah.
Here
Yeah.
we are, 2019, and what are we doing? Announcing friggin' SQL on Linux. And, hey, if you want Linux on the desktop, just install Windows 10. Hey, it's right there
Yeah. Yeah.
with Terminal Server, right? And, all the packages are available. I can run Docker from it. I can run all my
You can run
my
Kali
other
from it.
AP. I can run Kali from it. That's a funny story, right? We can run
Yeah.
Kali from it, but guess what happens when I install it in my domain at work? I get a phone call from my friends over in the Cyber Defense Operations Center saying, "Hey, Raul, what are you doing downloading Kali? We just saw you go do that."
Yeah.
And they're getting that through the Defender telemetry data, right? Because we're
Yeah.
all domain joined, Intune, and all that. And I'm like, dude, that's creepy. Don't do that to me, right? I sit
Yeah.
right next to you guys every day. And we can do that amongst our security folks, but guess what? If we do that to one of our end users,
Yeah.
they get freaked out, right? So
Yeah.
we take that very seriously, and we want to be responsible with what we do with that, and even more so when it comes to our customers' data. And we fight like cats and dogs inside the company, but when it comes to our customers, don't dare come after us, because we will fight even harder, right? We fight really hard to make sure that we protect that data. We're doing the right thing to protect it and secure it. And the incidents that have happened over the past couple of years with data leaks and supply chain gaps and social media companies and research companies. I mean, that to me that came really close to heart, right? I mean, being part of
Sure.
the Microsoft Research Division, what if one of our researchers is working with some educational institution and inadvertently has some customer data,
Yeah.
right? Well, thankfully, I spent the last 5-6 years working through making sure that we have full accountability of the data provenance and lineage, right? Which
Brilliant.
I mean, that makes sure that what kind of data do we have, right? GDPR fundamentally changed everything that we do and how we look at data and what we think is customer data and what we think is personal data, and really upped the ante in terms of the impact and implications for the responsibility that we have as Microsoft. Because yeah, I mean, Facebook might have whatever their consumers, and Twitter might have all their users and all that, but as Microsoft, right? I mean, we have the added impact of having to deal with the infrastructure of not just almost every customer and enterprise across the
The
U.S., but
world.
potentially the world,
Yeah.
and that includes nation states, right? And so
Yeah.
that puts us at a serious heightened watch and elevated uh, uh, you know work effort that we have to do there to protect those, and a lot of effort and
Fantastic.
a lot of investments to make sure that we defend against all adversaries, both foreign and domestic. Um,
Lovely. I want to move though, because we've got about 5 minutes.
yeah,
You
yeah,
take the passion of your career and your recent work with Microsoft, and you're pouring that passion into the Diana Initiative. What do people
indeed.
need to know about the Diana Initiative, and why is it so important?
The Diana Initiative is a great initiative to help bring new talent into the security community that haven't had those opportunities available to them, right? Particularly women and people of color. I believe that it's a great way to give an opportunity to them in a safe place where they can share and learn and work and get exposure to the same type of technologies. And for me, that's really important because it helps build that talent funnel, because everybody is looking for talent, and the type of talent that we need to bring into the marketplace is more than just hey, we need women, but we need all folks, of not just women, but um, you know people of all ethnicities. And if you think about it, Microsoft is a global company, right?
Yeah,
And you think about it from you know what's our hiring perspective here in the U.S., right? And there's how we look at that and how we hire for those people here, and the work we're doing to improve those balances, and making sure that we're fair, and we recognize those talents across women and LGBTQ plus folks, right? And even supporting them with our benefits, right? And we want to be able to bring people into this community and have them have a safe place so that they can learn, so that they can get that exposure to the training and the resources, so that we can bring those talents and that perspective into our engineering, into our security perspective, because you know that is going to be one of those things that as we look forward in the future with more machine learning and the perspectives of data bias, bringing in that diverse perspectives, right, of women and people of color is going to be critical in the security space, to be able to ask the right questions about how are we handling, the personal data, how are we making sure that we're not removing the bias, but rather we're recognizing that bias in those data sets,
right.
making sure that we're being responsible ombudsmen with our customers when they're trying to do these implementations, and making sure that they're not violating our own values and as a company as well, right? So these are the same things that we're dealing with, um, at a macro level, but things that we apply even down to how we do that to our volunteer work, right?
Yeah,
And so I encourage folks to volunteer. I encourage everyone on my team to go out and reach out and find something to go and give back to the community, because we're very blessed. We've been given huge opportunities and been super lucky to get into a company like where I'm at Microsoft. And it's a damn freaking shame that we don't take that back out to the world and give back to all those that's been given back to me, right? And so I look at that as my outlet to go and help bring help make that space happen, right?
it's so
It's
great.
more than just dreams, right? Because let's face it, dreams are lies. It's the dreaming that's real, right? Because
I gotcha.
without loving the dream, it will never come true,
So
right?
so true. So
And so yeah.
Diana's though been expanding. This year was, I think, what were the numbers? Because it's been growing ever since, and it grew to the point now where it's almost become a convention unto itself.
Yeah, I was really amazed, right? When I first, joined them a couple of years ago, right? They had gotten a penthouse suite, right? And
Yeah,
we had we had damn near 900 people lined up outside in the hallway The
I
fire marshal
remember.
came in is like, you guys got to do something. It's like, yeah, we know. We're trying to push them out, and it's like, and it was crazy, right? So, we had a packed, you know, set of sessions, you know, and even in that little space, I mean, we realized there was so much pent up demand, even on day one, right? That it was just impossible to fathom, right? And then, you know, last year they moved over to the Westin and ended up expanding to a capacity that can handle almost 3,000. And um, my understanding is that they had a really great session, right? I unfortunately wasn't able to participate a lot during that week, but I know that they had, you know, some great CPS. I stopped in and saw them doing soldering. Um, they had their own badge, and yeah, I mean it was essentially a mini conference right there alongside DEF CON in its own right, and
Yeah.
they had, you know, a lot of great success with driving that, and I was really, a bit bummed myself to see it from afar, but also really excited to see that it was still going and seeing the success that they had. Right, it was awesome from my perspective, and
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to seeing what they do in this next year because there's they're just still, you know, going strong.
So great. And so thank you so much for your time. I know it's early morning for us, but late for you. Um, do appreciate it so much. El Jefe de Security,
Yep.
Secure It. Um, my pleasure having you on BeerCon 1 and hearing your passion and enthusiasm for both Microsoft and the Diana initiatives. Just great work and great supporting the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, you too, and you know, a shout out to everybody. You know, this is a great opportunity to take a moment and you know, reach out to your friends, tweet out there, go out on Instagram, say, hey, let's push this through. We've got another what 29 hours to go on this, right?
It may feel,
Let's hit that 10,000, right? I'm gonna
yeah.
make a commitment right here, right now, right? If you manage to pull off another $1,000 by in the next 10 hours, I'll match that dollar for dollar,
Wow, that's super generous. Wow.
right?
Thank you so much.
Make it happen, ladies and gentlemen. Get me $1,000, and I'll put down $1,000 in the next
So,
7 hours. I'll wake up. If I don't see $1,000, I'll match whatever you guys got. Where are we
well,
at right now?
for the record, we're at 4,255. So the challenge is to get that to 5,256, and we get 1,000 from El Jefe. That's so generous of you. I can't thank you enough. We'll do it. We'll stoke the fires.
All right, you guys make it happen. What do we say? 10 hours?
Yeah, sure.
10 hours. $1,000 in 10 hours. Can you pull it off?
I think so.
All right.
We've had some
Sweet.
success so far. All
Awesome.
right,
Great.
we'll check back with you and we'll let you know how things are going. Thank you so much again.
Cool. Take care, man. And
All
great
right.
job. Keep it up.